Welcome back to another segment of the 3'n'D podcast. And Gabe, I want to talk to you about Draymond Green. Draymond Green in recent times has sort of grown in terms of his media presence and the platform on which he speaks. And Draymond Green historically has always been a guy who's been open to speaking his mind. He's extremely confident in himself. He's kind of unapologetic for his opinions and his views, and he is very comfortable in his own skin. And sometimes that can lead to I don't want to use the word arrogance, but it can lead to like a greater belief of his own self compared to what other people think about him. So I think Draymond Green in the past, and this may not be 100% accurate, but I think he said something along the lines of, if I had a Finals MVP on my resume, I would be a lock to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. I want to talk about this because on the surface, if you look at Draymond Green's counting stats, it doesn't look like he's Hall of Fame worthy. And we have some guys in the Hall of Fame who don't have great counting stats, but I want to ask you, what's your opinion? Do you think Draymond Green, with his current resume, has a chance at being a first ballot Hall of Famer?
Yeah, so with Draymond, I currently think he has no chance at being a first ballot Hall of Famer, and let me tell you why. Yeah, you mentioned he's got the real media presence now, signed a deal with TNT. He's really showing up on podcasts now as well. It sort of looks like he's sort of setting the plate for his Hall of Fame case as he's in the back end of his career from a basketball player standpoint. But like you said it best, he is a career triple single. What he does have to his name that most players don't is 3 NBA championships, which is you could take it into context and say he played a pivotal role, but let's be honest, he's had Kevin Durant on two of those teams, so they were basically a lock to win the championship that year, barring any significant injuries, because we saw the year there was an injury, Warriors couldn't pull through. But just taking away those team accomplishments aside, to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, you really need the statistics to do so. Now, personally, even if he had a finals MVP, I still wouldn't say that really pushes him over the edge for a first ballot Hall of Famer. And let me just be totally clear. I think he does get into the Hall of Fame based on the way the NBA voting or Basketball Hall of Fame voting is. As a personal choice, I don't think he should be in the Hall of Fame, but I am almost 100% that he does get in eventually. But if I look at Draymond Green and what he really focuses on is like he's a key defensive player, defensive presence in this era. And I want to bring up, I guess, a comparative player in Ben Wallace, actually. He got, now just to know, Ben Wallace got into the Hall of Fame, but he did not get in first ballot. And the stats, he's not, obviously, Draymond has better triple single stats, but he was a career 5 points a game, 9.6 rebound a game player. But what Ben Wallace has is pretty comparable to Draymond Green in a sense that they're both four-time All-Stars. He is a block champ for 1 year in the NBA, which offsets with Draymond being a steal champ for 1 year in the NBA. Ben Wallace has more All NBAs at 5 to Draymond's 3. He's a 6-time All Defensive NBA. That ties Draymond. But also Ben Wallace has 4 Defensive Player of the Year award nominations. So even individually on those accolades alone, Ben Wallace I think beats him. And that Detroit Pistons team that he actually won a championship with, a lot of people argue there are no stars on that team, and that was really a real team effort where they actually needed Ben Wallace to win the championship, where they were not like an overwhelming favorite, especially in the finals against the Lakers. So just from that comp alone, like even he wasn't a lock to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, and I don't think Draymond Green's really done anything more extraordinary than he has. Like they're comparative players. So that's just where I stand on that.
Okay, so interesting that you bring up Ben Wallace because I had him as one of my comps as well. But I'll backtrack a bit. Draymond Green is not even close to a first ballot Hall of Famer. He has absolutely no chance. The Basketball References Hall of Fame probability gives him a 59.7% chance just to make it. Not as a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's barely over 50-50. He's 60-40 essentially. Just to make it alone, not regardless of what ballot he's on. That is a screaming distance away from being a first ballot Hall of Famer. And you brought up Ben Wallace. Great comp because Ben Wallace that year they won the title. I think they beat the Lakers, right? They beat them 4-1.
They did, yep.
And Ben Wallace had to guard Prime Shaq in order for them to win that series. So what Ben Wallace was doing, again, you could make the argument that Draymond had to guard prime LeBron, and which he did, but Draymond wasn't the only defender that guarded LeBron. Iguodala guarded him. It was a team effort more so than it was Draymond single-handedly guarding LeBron. And at the end of the day, LeBron still
Well,
put up
just on
insane
that,
stats.
yeah, even then, LeBron's stats show that he put up the insane numbers where Shaq was actually mitigated versus like how he ran through the Western Conference that year.
Right, exactly. And I want to bring up another guy. I want to bring up who Draymond Green. We always do this Chicago 96 Bulls and 2017 Warriors or 2018 Warriors. The Bulls and Warriors are always in the same sort of tier in terms of the best team we've ever seen in the NBA. I want to bring up Dennis Rodman.
Okay.
Dennis Rodman was he missed the final ballot on his first year, but he made it as a first ballot on his second year. So technically, he's not a first ballot Hall of Famer. Dennis Rodman is not a first ballot Hall of Famer. And if you stack their resumes together, Dennis Rodman has averages almost double the rebounds per game. The counting stats, the points, neither guy has relied on to score, but Dennis Rodman has double the rebounds. Dennis has 5 championships to Draymond's 3. He's got 2 Defensive Player of the Years to Draymond's 1. He's got 7 times first team all defense to Draymond's 4 times first team all defense. He's got 1 time second team all defense to Draymond's 2 second team all defense. 2-time All Star. Draymond's a 4-time All Star. He's 2-time All NBA third team. Draymond is 1-time All NBA second team, 1-time All NBA third team. So they're both 2 times All NBA team. He's a 7-time rebounding champion, and he still didn't get in first ballot on what was arguably the greatest team ever in terms of Jordan's Bulls and that sort of dynasty in the 90s. And he didn't get in first ballot. And so for Draymond to make a claim like he's a lock to be a first ballot Hall of Famer if he wins the finals MVP, I want to talk about another guy, Chauncey Billups on that Detroit team.
Hmm.
Much better counting stats, also an NBA champion, also has a finals MVP, and Basketball Hall of Fame or Basketball Reference gives him a Hall of Fame probability of 84.4%. He's still not in the Hall of Fame. Forget first ballot; he hasn't even made it yet. So I think Draymond's a little delusional. His self confidence is getting the best of him here because I really don't see a case for Draymond to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. I think the better question is Draymond going to be a Hall of Famer at all? And he is, but I think it's a lot closer. He's closer to not being a Hall of Famer than he is to being a first ballot Hall of Famer. I'll put it that way. So I just don't see
No,
the
I agree with that. And even with the Rodman comp you mentioned, he still had 2 rings with the Pistons as a key contributor on that team. I don't know if Draymond has this kind of success not playing with Steph in
right
play, right?
in another situation. Yeah, Draymond's sort of been in like the perfect situation for himself where I don't necessarily know his game translates the way it does, the way he is, like his importance to the Warriors. He's not as important to a lot of other teams. He's sort of like the ultimate ceiling raiser, but he's not really a floor raiser. So if the team isn't already great around him, he's not going to be able to do much. He's the difference between maybe a Western Conference finalist team and a championship team and like getting you over the hump, but he can't push like an 8 seed all the way up to like a second seed and then make them win an NBA championship on his own. Like he's not that type of talent. And I think to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, you have to be able to be the main guy and prove that you can win as the main guy. Not necessarily a championship, but you should be able to have a winning team as the main guy, which I don't think Draymond Green can do.
Yeah, no, I get that. And even like the stats suggest that like he can't shoot the ball well. He's a decent distributor for if you consider him a big at 6'6". But even now, like with the upcoming talent, you're seeing like bigs are much better facilitators with the ball to the extent like Jokic is an elite distributor.
Elite.
So I think one of the things that Draymond is doing is more gamesmanship in a sense where he's trying to set the table for his Hall of Fame case when it comes through. Because depending on like when you retire and when you're eligible, like a lot of these guys are almost out the door. Like Steph's going to retire soon, LeBron will, KD will, and if he's stacked against the ballots with all these players, there's no chance he goes first ballot Hall of Fame.
Oh yeah, 100%. That's a good point because for him to go first ballot, he'd really need to be in a very weak year, and even then, I think it's difficult. But you're right. If he ends up falling into the class of some of these other guys who are going to be retiring around the same time he does, and I don't think Draymond Green has a really long shelf life in the NBA. The way he plays, his versatility on defense is going to take a dive once his athleticism wanes, because you can't expect a 6'6" guy who can't jump and who can't move as fast, who can't be in the right place at the right time because he physically can't get there fast enough
Yep.
to guard 6'10", 6'11", 260-pound centers. Like, that's just not going to happen. So his shelf life on the because of his physical limitations, his career may not be as long as he thinks it's gonna be. I think he's gonna his impact is gonna start dwindling faster than some might think. So you're right. I think if he ends up falling into this class of guys, like we've already agreed that the NBA, the talent in the NBA right now is probably better than it's ever been. So if he ends up falling, like retiring along with some of this talent that's going out the door, yeah, he has no chance.
It's funny that you mentioned that, where his shelf life is smaller or like less, doesn't feel like it's going to last that much longer. And like with the talent coming in now, where guys are just bigger, much better ball handlers, much better at shot creating and creating
Yeah,
their
they're
own
more
offense.
skilled.
It's like you're looking at it, like if I'm just foreshadowing it, Draymond Green seems like the type of guy to be in 2040 saying like, "Oh, this is nothing like basketball in the 2015 or 2020s." You know, like back
Oh
then it was
yeah,
tough. He seems like he's going to be that
oh
kind of
yeah,
guy.
like the back in my day type guy, like Charles Oakley.
Yeah, I could see it being like that.
Yeah, I see it. I see it. And again, that just comes from how confident he is and how much he believes in himself. But I think there's a disconnect there between what he can really do and how confident he is. So, in terms of his Hall of Fame case, I'm more curious to see if he even makes the Hall of Fame, and I do think he will. But like I said, he's closer to not making it than he is to being a first ballot Hall of Famer.
So do you think he gets in because the voters will put him in, or he deserves to be in there? Because I personally don't think he should be in the Hall of Fame. I think he gets in though based on the voters.
Okay, so that's a separate question, and I'll answer it quickly before you wrap up this segment. But I think he gets in because the Basketball Hall of Fame is pretty. It's a pretty low bar to get in at all. And one thing we didn't mention is Draymond Green is a two-time gold medalist in the Olympics, and they factor that type of stuff in when considering your case for the Hall of Fame. It's not just your NBA, it's your entire basketball career. I think Draymond Green had a 4-year career at Michigan State. I think they won a collegiate title while he was there. So he had a good career at Michigan State. He's won in high school. He won at the Olympic level. He's a three-time NBA champion, and he's sort of, a prominent piece of those titles. So I do think he gets in. Now, whether or not I believe, like, I just think the standard to get into the Hall of Fame should be different. So that's a whole separate conversation in terms of whether I think he should get in or not. But using the current standard, yeah, I think he should get in. It's close, but yeah, he should get in. He's done a lot for his teams. Every team at every level he's played for, he's played his role really well, and it's led to winning. And I think that's what the Hall of Fame looks at. So yeah, I think he gets in. Now I just think the Hall of Fame is not really that big of an accomplishment considering how many people get in. So
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I think Brian Windhorst mentioned this on one of his podcasts, where it's like there is getting into the Hall of Fame as an achievement, and then there's getting in first ballot. That's like the creme de la creme, and that puts you in like
yeah,
a separate Hall class. And I think that's
yep,
like Draymond's nowhere near that bar, but he's in within the first round.
agreed, agreed.